Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm John Layfield. I'm your host, and this is the show all about people changing the world. Seren Fryatt went to the west coast country of Liberia in Africa in 2007, and since then, she has become one of the 50 most inspirational people in sports, according to Beyond Sport, alongside a couple people you might know like Muhammad Ali and Nelson Mandela for her incredible work with child soldiers post-Civil War with Ebola and now fighting the COVID pandemic. And if that's not enough, she's now working with refugees in the United States. Sarah, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
From child soldiers to Ebola to COVID to refugees, do you ever do anything easy?
I try not to, I guess. Actually, I just leave most of that to our staff, our local staff, because L.A.C.E.S works with locals. So I kind of am like, this seems to be the most difficult, youth to reach. So I'm going to give you guys this idea on how to do it, and then you guys do it. And I'm just going to,
You
yeah.
had an aha moment. I love these aha moments. When you decide you're going to step into the Rubicon, cross it, and there's no turning back. Burn the boats, as they say in this country. And you decided to go and be part of Mercy Ships and leave
Mhm.
your job as an athletic trainer. Tell me about that thought process that you had where you decided, you know what, I'm doing great work here, I'm making money, but I want to go do something and change the world.
Yeah, I had been an athletic trainer. I was working at Northwestern University, and part of, Division One sports, men's soccer, women's lacrosse, it's highly competitive, and I loved being part of that. I think I just started to reflect on my own life I kind of felt like I was sort of spinning in a circle a little bit. It didn't really have a direct path. And so I didn't know really what I was looking for, but I knew it wasn't this. It wasn't that anymore. Being an athletic trainer, just in the particular situation I am, was just not where I wanted to continue to pursue. So I just quit one day with literally, no other job, no other vision for what I was going to do. But I was like, I want to go see if I can make a difference in the world. And I didn't even know what that meant. And so I started looking at different organizations, and I found an organization called Mercy Ships, and they convert old cruise liners into hospitals. And this is interesting, John. I'm not sure you know about this, but I was actually denied my first time working there. So I applied and they said no. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go back to working again because I felt, so strongly about it. And my personal faith, I'm a Christian, has a lot to do with, this path. And so this woman called me and told me I couldn't serve because I have seizures. And at the time, it just wasn't something that they allowed for safety purposes, which I totally understood. And then I was working at my new job at a physical therapy clinic for a company I loved and had been there a year. And the same woman called me like on my lunch break while I was there and was like, hey, I've been advocating on your behalf and I would love for you to come and serve with Mercy Ships. And I was like, okay. She's like, do you want to come? I was like, yeah, sure. So like I'm at my current job and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna quit. So I gave them like so I quit a job twice to go and do this, which is just crazy. And I gave a 1 month notice that time. And some of the people there became my biggest advocates and for L.A.C.E.S. So I found myself moving from, the lake shores of Chicago to, the coast of West Africa to serve with Mercy Ships. And at that time, it was just there to see how I could help in the world. And after 2 weeks of being there, I was sorry, I stepped off the ship because you literally lived on the ship to play a pickup soccer game with some locals. And Liberia has a women's professional soccer league. And a coach saw me playing, recruited me to play. So I had the opportunity to play, women's soccer in Liberia professionally. I played all my life in college, everything. And this was just an opportunity that I never thought I would get. And so I started to get to know the women on my team. And, to give a bit of a context, Liberia had just come out of a 14-year civil war, and it was known for its use and abuse of child soldiers. Over 15,000 children were child soldiers, and the brutal things that just happened to the women and the men and the children of that country were traumatizing, and some things I can't even imagine. And I started to hear more about it, hear the stories of the women on my team, got to know them on the field and off the field. And it's like something clicked. I was like, wow, on the field, these women have, just look inspired, and, like their worries have gone away. And then we go off the field in their homes, and the weight of the world was on them again. And, for me, sports was about winning and losing. Always had been extremely competitive individual. You lost, you didn't play well. Like, this is just how it was. But seeing that was the first time, and that was my aha moment, really, was when I was like, wait, sport is more than a game. Look at what it's doing for these women on the team. And then I just started to look around me, and I saw children who were former child soldiers who were on the street. I would see them, begging for money or looking for food. And I would see them tucked off into that small little corner playing soccer. And they became kids again. And I just started seeing it all around me. My eyes opened up to it. And, God put an idea on my heart. And that's how L.A.C.E.S, which stands for Life and Change Experience Through Sports, was born. That's
So
my
you go
aha.
to Liberia to serve the people, and you become a professional soccer player.
Yeah.
From what I read, there were three people in a 10 by 10 room. That's how you were dormed at the time
Yeah. On the ship. Yeah.
on the ship. So did you come back and say, "Hey, I'm a pro soccer player now. You got to give me my own room"?
No, they did pay me.
Was there any
the,
demands at that point that you don't want? Guys, I'm a different person now.
No, I didn't. But I that's funny. I got paid, but they also gave me a cell phone. Like, I didn't have a cell phone at that time. And so because the team could never get a hold of me, and like
Right.
we had phones on the ship, so I could call them, but they could never call me. So they were like, we're buying you a cell phone, and like, here's your pay. And on top of that, they would give me money to like put credit on the phone so they could call me.
And you were, from what I've seen pictures, you were the only white person. Were you the only white person in the league?
Yes, yes. So the interesting thing is my middle name at the time, I've changed it, but my middle name at the time was Sue. And Seren can be a little bit trickier to say and pronounce. And so once they got my full information, they started calling me Sue. So I was known for Sue, right? And in Liberia, all around. And so when I'm in Liberia, I know if people know me from my professional time because they'll call me Sue. They won't call me by my first name. So I was quite popular. I mean, I think, being the only white person, like I stood out on a field and I stood out in general. But yeah.
Back to the moment where you quit your first job and decided you wanted to go do something and change the world. You had this mission that you felt this from God, that you were wanting to do something more than what you were just doing. But then it didn't work out. You didn't really have a plan where you were going to go. You tried Mercy Ships and didn't work out. Were you a little despondent there that time? Like, hey, I quit to change the world, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden now I can't figure out how to do that.
Yes. Yes, I was. My previous job that I really loved, they offered me my job back when I came back, and I didn't quite have a direction yet, but I knew like what God put on my heart. I was like, this is what I should be doing, mentoring youth, bringing out a path of restoration for these former child soldiers. It was very clear to me. So I started my old job while I was trying to figure this out, and they I started looking organizations in Liberia doing this. I couldn't find any. I couldn't find anything. And this was 14 years ago, where sports, for social change really was on the rise, I guess, at that point. And I couldn't find it, and I got frustrated. And actually, one of my patients, I was expressing this to one of the patients that I saw at the clinic, and he challenged me, and he said, well, why don't you do this yourself? And imagine he's an entrepreneur. So, for him, it's like, this is, it makes sense. You have this idea, no one's doing it. Let's make it happen. And so I said, I don't think I can do that. And he said, okay, come back, next week when I come back, we'll talk about it more. So I spent the week thinking about it. And it was one of those things where I just didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that a group of people could come around me and make this possible. I saw it as something I had to do. and didn't really even see that actually I don't. Like maybe I'm just the catalyst in bringing people together to make this happen. So if that particular patient inspired me and said, you can do this. He helped me write a business plan. Someone helped me write a budget, and all things that I had never done before. I hadn't even ever balanced my checkbook, let alone like I know how to do it now, but like, you know, but then, it was one of those things where I didn't use that tool. And um, so yeah, somebody just literally challenged me and said, why can't you be this person who does this?
So then you started the fundraising. What was your fundraising for? I mean, I know what it was for. You want to change lives, but how were you positioning that you were going to change those lives? I know you want to use soccer as a sport, as a conduit, as a carrot to get these kids in so that you could change their lives. What were you telling sponsors that you were wanting to set up and do in Liberia that made them? Because you end up raising, from what I read, $80,000 from your church, Eden, and several fundraisers that you did to take with you to Liberia to start.
Yep. Yeah. So, some of that was just like explaining who these children are, what had happened in Liberia, and why they deserved this. They were children, right? I mean, helping people reflect like on your own child, like your child deserves this. They deserve this happiness, and this is where people and children in Liberia were getting it. In addition to, they needed people to invest in them. And I think you really can communicate to people, if they have children or they experience sports in their own way. Sports changed them. Sports did something for them. Positive role models. People can remember, but this is a person who made an impact on my life. So explaining to them that this is what I wanted to do. This is what I felt. And this is how I thought we could do it. And remember, you've had this experience in your life. I mean, John, I'm sure you can remember somebody who just had this experience, whether it was in sports or not, who either inspired you, made you look at something in a different way, came alongside of you, encouraged you, patted you on the back. And we don't forget that person, or we don't forget that feeling in that moment.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things about dealing with kids, in at-risk areas is they don't have that.
Mhm.
Later, you had Ball State and Arizona State do a survey about what you were doing with refugees in the DC area. And one of the things they came out was that their most important person in their life, or their most important role model, was the coaches that you were providing. So you were providing what they didn't have in their life, and every kid needs so badly.
Yeah, so that particular research, just as a point of reference, was done on our kids in Liberia.
Awesome.
So yeah, no, that's okay. I just like, because those are the kids that this was done on were street children. So they have no family. These kids live in cars. They live on the street. Like, I think people think of the streets like, no, it's not like there's homeless shelters there. Like, these children literally live in abandoned cars or outside stores, and they don't have people. In fact, the community sees them as people who steal, who cause problems, who are, uh, take things from them, aren't valuable to society. And so these, you bring coaches in their life who care about them, invest in them, spend time with them. Like, an adult that spends time with them is like, you'd think that would be natural, but it's not. And so for them, it's like the coach is the person who loves me, and they see their team as their family. They're
When you
their brothers and sisters who take care of each other.
when you went back to Liberia, it was a pretty bad country. They had lost
Yeah.
90% of their GDP through the Civil War of 14 years. They had lost 8% of their population through death, not to mention all the people that had been displaced. You had 15,000 different child soldiers that are now back in society after the Civil War. And you also had 83% of the people below the poverty line, according
Mm.
to unified standards of where that poverty line is. Did you have any trepidation about, and it's right by Sierra Leone, which has had problems, a lot of problems
Yeah.
politically, and violence against women. Did you have any doubt going over there by yourself into Liberia about what you were doing and your
One
safety?
would
Did your family have any doubt?
one would think I would have. Probably reflecting on it, I should have. My parents definitely did. But I really didn't think about it. It was this thing where I was like so focused and spending my time. Like, I knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing. You know how I was saying I was spinning in circles when I was doing athletic training? I was like on a path, and I knew it. And so I really didn't see anything else around me that wasn't taking me towards that path. Um, so I would hear my mom and my dad, who, as good parents, should be saying these things in my ear, but I really never thought about it. And, I wouldn't, once I got there, you have to pay attention to life. You have to recognize your vulnerabilities. You have to recognize, where you live, where you are. But I did have a network of friends there that who cared about me, that I could connect with. So I wasn't going there because it's people I had met when I was on mercy ships. It wasn't like I was going there not knowing anybody who could be part of my support system.
And you're also going back where that was when you're going to play your second professional season, right?
Yeah, so I was going to. So I played for a little while, but then once L.A.C.E.S really kicked off there, it was too difficult to make it to practices because they were too far away. So I couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, I did continue to play after I went back, but just for a short period of time.
I saw an interview you did, and you said the first team you had was all former child soldiers. Uh, these are kids who were forced into, a lot of them had to commit terrible atrocities, and you're dealing with these kids. What was that like?
Um, I think so. Where I believed my biggest role at the time to mentor these children was to mentor the coaches and to be part of their lives and help them see how they can make an impact, because many of them hadn't gone to school in a decade. They hadn't had jobs, and a lot of it was, and by not going to school in a decade, I mean, these were formative years of their life where most of the kids here are in school. And I remember one time, we'd gone through this training, and I had done a training with the coaches, and then they start working with the kids. And one of the coaches came to my office, which means he spent his money, paid his money to come to the office. And he could have told me this at any point, but he decided to seek me out individually and say, he's like, "Thank you for what you've done. You've helped me feel like a man again. I have children who look up to me. I have kids I'm responsible for, and people in the community respect me because I know that I'm making a difference and they see it." So, for my beginning time there and then what happens there is, now that they have that confidence, the kids are seeing that, right? And so the kids are part of that, and they're feeling that, and they know it's a safe place to be. And I'm not going to say that kids changed overnight, because it's not true. It takes time. But when somebody cares about you day in and day out, and our coaches live in the community where the kids are, and we find that while soccer brings them together, the most impactful time that they have is actually outside of L.A.C.E.S, but they form the relationships and the trust within L.A.C.E.S, and they have that camaraderie. But the development that they see is when the coaches go to their homes, or where they live on the street, and really get to know them and help them with their personal things in life.
I saw that one of your numbers later, as the program progressed, you had 450 kids in the program, about 50 coaches. Where do you recruit the coaches?
So the coaches come from the local community. They have to live in a community where the kids are, and they're identified by the community. So the community says, "Hey, we think these people would be great role models for the kids. We think that they'd be able to invest." And then we interview them and, select the however many we need during that time.
One of the things that some charities make a mistake of is, we're going to go in and we're going to run this, and we're going to show people how to do these things, and we're going to change people's lives, which is very noble, but can
Mhm.
be wrong at times.
Yeah.
Your MO to go in there was, we're going to do this, but we're going to do this with you. You're going to
Mhm.
do this, and you're going to make the change in your own community, not this American coming over and running this program. You're going to be the nuts and bolts of this program.
Yeah, so we did that. So I would say, well, I'm the founder of the organization. There's three of us that are kind of the co-founders. So our two lead staff in Liberia have been with me from the very first day, for 14 years now. And we, we have a curriculum that was proven through the research that you mentioned, being, showing the impact of our program. But the three of us built this together. So after I knew before I went, I hadn't lived through 14 years of civil war. I didn't know what it's like to be a child soldier. I didn't know what it was take to come along on a path of restoration. And I certainly didn't live in the communities to know the challenges they faced day in and day out. So 2 weeks in, my initial goal immediately was hire locals. So I just spent my first couple of weeks hiring locals, and so were given to me by recommendation, and through other recommendations. And I found my two people that are like, we've become a team, and we're expanding globally, and they're actually the ones who are doing the trainings, not me. They're going to Sierra Leone. They're the ones doing the trainings because they know the program. But so they helped me develop the whole thing, and from the very start. And really, I sort of, after the first 3 months, I sort of kind of played a role behind the scenes where, yes, people saw me, but my main interaction was helping our Liberia staff and building this program, making sure we had something to have a solid foundation on.
One of the things I found interesting about Liberia, a lot of things I found interesting about after the Civil War. One of the reasons it ended was because the women of Liberia, the group got together and they made great changes, and it went down to the Ghana peace talks. And then in 2005, you had Ellen Joseph Johnson Sirleaf was the first woman president of Liberia. How are women treated in Liberia? They've done incredible things during this time period. How are women treated overall in
Yeah,
Liberia?
I mean, women power in Liberia. I mean, you have a president who's a woman, and I'm excited about that. And I think you know, women are respected in Liberia. They respect their mothers, and they take care of their daughters. And there's um, there's violence that happens. Women are victims of violence, and they were horribly victims of violence during the Civil War. I mean, it was just really, the stories I hear were very painful. Um, and so what I see now is there equity there? No. Mm-mm. Is there respect there? Yes. Yes. People respect women in that culture, and they do have a voice, and they do advocate, and they are respected for that. But I don't want to go as far as saying that there's equity and that there's not abuse and other things that women should never experience anywhere. But women have a strong role.
After the genocide in the early 90s back in Rwanda between the Hutus and the Tutsis, Rwandans came together and said, never again. This will not happen to our country again. Was Liberia the same way after you had 14 years of actually two civil wars, but one basically continuous civil war for 14 years? How was Liberia during that time and the resolve they had that this is not going to happen to our country again?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were tired. They were tired of the violence. They were, once it was done, and they saw, 14 years, a generation grows up only knowing Civil War, right? Like
Right.
entire generation. And so that's all you know. That's all you've learned. That's how you've lived your life day to day. Um, you know, trying to make sure that you dodge those bullets, and where the safe place is to be, and how to, I mean, Civil War is not just about the actual violence, it's about access to food. It's about being separated from your families. It's, living in refugee camps and stuff like that. And I think at the end of the day, once the violence was over, they were tired, and they started to see what life was like without a civil war. And now they've said never again. This is, we know how to do this without this. And you know um, President Sirleaf's term, that where there was peace throughout that time, that was a long time, and she served long term. And so people really got this sense of belonging. And some of it was around tribal lines. There's 16 different tribes in Liberia. And but then and that helped fuel the war as well. There was many factors, but that helped fuel it. Um, I think I think probably like the genocide in Rwanda. They said, we're tired of this. This isn't how we want. I mean, I'm not trying to put my words in the mouth of Liberians nor Rwandans by any stretch of the means, but the way it's communicated to me is that they were just, once they experienced it being done, they didn't want to go back.
You and I have seen how sport can change lives, and I've heard I saw an interview you did. This is not a soccer program. People used to ask me, Is it a sports program or is it a youth program?" And the answer is always yes. It's
Yeah,
both. It's
yeah.
but for people that don't understand, tell me about your practice and your theme at the beginning of the day. I love this when you explain how your practice starts with a theme, ends with a theme, and during the practice itself works toward that theme to teach morals, to teach kids respect, to teach kids life skills that they need.
Yeah, I mean, look at, the values that we encourage are self-esteem, discipline, respect, teamwork, fair play, honesty. These are all things that we, help us thrive in life, right? If you're looking for employment or to be a good friend or to be part of a greater community, to have these things, uh, it's a life skill. And so the way that ours is set up is we're with our kids 3 days a week formally. 2 days is practice, 1 day is games. They show up and, through the research and all the time we put into writing this curriculum, it's like literally it's a booklet. It's like the coach shows up and they can read from this booklet, and we know that every child has the same experience from the knowledge that they receive. And so a kid comes and maybe the topic is self-esteem, and we focus on a topic like that, a value for an entire month. So sometimes using the word self-esteem doesn't necessarily mean anything, especially to people who might not have it. They might know the definition, but they don't necessarily know what it feels like to have it. So defining it and discussing it is the very first thing that we do. Then we do non-sports games that can encourage self-esteem, encouraging your friend through a different activity outside of sports. Then we look at, a lot of our work is, we're a Christian organization. A lot of what we do is based on the life of Christ. And so we look at this value and we say, okay, in the Bible, this is where self-esteem, where we see an example of it. And um, look, this is an example in the world, in the Bible and in the world, of what self-esteem can look like. And so you talk again, and they have a grounding place as well. I mean, Liberia specifically is predominantly a Christian country, and they hear the stories, throughout their life, and and through church and daily living at school. And then, so we go through that portion. Then, honestly, they play soccer. And we've trained our coaches on how to focus on that self esteem. So, whether it's like saying, hey, good job to a child, but being very intentional, or the drill might be you encourage somebody or you're talking, you focus on self esteem. And then we wrap it up by saying, this is how you can apply it outside in life. Encourage a friend, build someone up, tell them what a great job they did. How do you've learned about it inwardly, right? And we've given you examples. Now we're challenging you to say, go and do this. Go and be your own change maker, right? We're not only mentoring them, we want them to be role models who can then take what we've taught them into the next generation.
And do you start every practice with this group session?
Yep, every practice.
I saw that in Memphis also with Shane Young, who I think you probably know, Memphis Center City
Yeah.
Rugby. And
hmm
to me, it changes the whole mindset of practice. Instead of just saying line up, let's get loose, let's get stretched. You get them their mind right first,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
you get them all on the same page, and you tell them this is something that is bigger than sport, and it sets the standard for the entire day and the entire week.
Yes, exactly. And I think, it's important to have that lesson at the beginning to help put words to it, but really being able to apply it, right? It's like sometimes, I think, I mean, let's be honest, kids don't always hear what we're saying, right? Like you
Right?
do my child doesn't listen to me like all the time. They don't always hear what you're saying. But if you can verbalize it and then you can explain it to them through action, like them actually taking this, them you showing it to them, and then having them practice it, in the world, outside of that space is where the learning, I believe, goes on.
Some of the things that you do is helping kids. Ebola, you had some terrific success fighting Ebola. Please talk about your success you had with that terrible disease
Yeah.
that hit Liberia very hard.
So we, because all of our coaches live in the communities, they already have a relationship with the community. And as people see these children develop in our program, the community knows us. We're a respected group of people in that community. And, I can wear a L.A.C.E.S shirt and logo, and people might never have seen me before walking around the community. And everyone's like, oh, L.A.C.E.S, L.A.C.E.S, even if they don't see the writing on it, because I might have a jersey on. So, but they know us. And so what happened with the Ebola crisis is that one of the biggest challenges people faced is they didn't believe it was real. They didn't understand the virus. They didn't have, and I think many of us didn't, right? But they didn't understand it. They didn't believe it. All kinds of theories came with it because the people who were telling them about it the most, they didn't trust, such as the government, or not that they didn't trust international NGOs, they just didn't know them. They weren't their neighbors, right? And
Right.
so we put our coaches together, and we literally knocked door to door, and we reached 15,000 people. We share with them flyers and impact, explanation, showed them how to wash their hands and use buckets, and we provided it to households. And we basically, our programs were set aside, but I think our coaches worked harder than ever. We only had 25 coaches in that community, and so they reached 15,000 people through awareness. Like, that's crazy to me. Um, the interesting thing is that a single person in that community had got Ebola, but the very neighboring community 5 minutes down the road, where, they weren't hearing the message and they weren't part of that, they had been quarantined, and they had huge loss, a ton of Ebola orphans, which we then eventually went to that community once Ebola was finished, and we invested in those children and helped them recover. We did trauma healing courses with them. One of the biggest things was that people in the community didn't want to be around these children because they had been Ebola orphans. Some of them had had Ebola and recovered from it, but people were scared of them. And to be honest, so were our coaches. We had to educate our coaches as well. Like, no, you can hug these children. They don't have Ebola anymore. They never had Ebola. And children then share with us, like, the community started accepting them again, and other people wanted to be around them because they saw people hugging them and they weren't getting sick. They saw people around them. So I think truly it was our local impact, our local, what the core of the organization does in regards to everything being ran by locals is what saved people's lives.
To go back, you're talking about kids and the reaction to these kids who had Ebola. These kids who were child soldiers that you brought into your program. How are these kids? How are they? What kind of mental issues did they have? What kind of issues did you have with these kids? Was there anger issues? Was there issues that you had a hard time dealing with? Because most people have never seen something like this.
Yeah, a lot of violence, a lot of violence, a lot of anger, a lot of lack of respect. Um, just the it was difficult. That's how they were trained. They're former child soldiers. They were trained to disrespect people. They were trained that violence got them where they wanted to do it. It's not like who they were. It was a training
How
that they
old,
had.
how old, like, was the average child?
Well, kids in our program are ages 10 to 14. So these are young, like, we're talking child soldiers, and there were child soldiers that were much younger than that, but kids come into our program at age 10 and 11. So these were children. And remember, the Civil War went on for 14 years. So it wasn't like when they were 10 is when this was happening. It was before that. And, the impact that, the research that you talked about, it's within 9 months. And so actually within where we see this impact in a very short period of time, when you start investing in children, believing in them, explaining to them, like, this is not how you solve problems. This is how you respect people. So within L.A.C.E.S, we have our own rules for games. So, like, if a child does something that might be a foul and it looked intentional, a child is pulled off the field. In the States, the game will go on, or around the world, I'd say the game would go on, and they'd get a red card, they'd be benched. but a child does something that shows, looks like anger or, disrespect for others, they're pulled off the field. And it's not like they're stood and they're punished for being there. There's a community coordinator that explains to them, oh, what did you do wrong? Why did you do that? What brought that on? What can you do next time? And, you see kids now, like they hit somebody, push them over, and they help the person on the other team get up. They still play competitively. I mean, it is a sport, but there's a difference. There's a difference when you can see where the motivation is coming from and the way that it's been approached. And yeah.
The stuff that you're doing, this stuff that United Nations tries to do, stuff that USAID is trying to do. Do you get any funding or any support from groups like that?
We do not. No, currently we do not receive funding from. It would be great. Let's talk to them about it.
I'd love
I would love to talk to someone at USAID or the UN about it.
Because you're actually a delivery mechanism that could actually implement these programs they're trying to put in. And you see many times in developing countries, United Nations trucks, but they're not really a lot of times where the problem is. And I don't think it's because they're not well-meaning. I think it's because they don't know. But if they go through groups like yours, they can actually get to where the problem is.
Yes, agreed completely. Because we have a platform. We have a platform where, we taught, trauma healing. We can talk about hygiene, which is what we did through the Ebola, what we've done through COVID. Like our kids, in a very interesting way, in our current program, they came to us and said, we want to feel safe in our neighborhood. And COVID was once again treated very similar to Ebola because you couldn't see it. Didn't understand it. And so our kids were like, we want to do a radio jingle and put it out there for 70,000 people to hear every day. And so we sought out funding and we did a radio jingle, not a sports thing, right, at all, but our name had been recognized. Our children felt empowered, right? So you look at programs, and what the UN and USA do are very valuable. They're providing food and they're providing all kinds of resources for people who desperately need it. But I think what maybe a lot of is missing is rising up your future leaders. They're the ones who are going to make the changes. They're the ones who are going to be innovative. And when you empower them and you make a difference because you have a platform, that's where long-term change is. And, sometimes relief is necessary and what like the UN is doing and things like that. But sometimes development of human beings, social and emotional skills, not just always meeting their physical needs, has a huge impact on society.
So not that enough running a great program in a foreign country is enough. Then you start working with refugees in the DC area. How did all of this come about?
Yeah, we were looking to expand our programs and to see where we could make impact in other ways in the world. And I'm based in Washington, D.C. And our staff started just looking in our backyard, being like, there's a group of a population of people who are underserved, severely underserved. When refugees are resettled into the United States, they're given services to help them transition, whether it's English language, maybe some rent support, and it's for a limited period of time. I don't know all the details for that, but it's very, very few youth services. So the children imagine they've come from trauma. Not all, but a lot of them have lived in refugee camps. They come to the US. They don't know the language. Some do, but let's just say a majority of the ones we work with don't. How about that? Don't know the language, don't know the culture, right? It's different. And they have to go to school. So they get here and if they come in the middle of school year, a week later, they're in school. And so, you can imagine kids are bullied. They're picked on. They can't understand their teachers. They don't feel like they fit in. And there's not services that support that. So we thought sports. What we've been doing in Liberia, what our focus was, what we believe makes a great impact in this world, we could do with them and we could have the same impact. And the number of stories I could tell you of children who have developed, I'm going to give you one child. He came to the US, never played soccer before. I didn't actually even know this until a year later. Never played soccer before. just kicked the ball around occasionally, but really had not played that much. He was referred to our program. His English language skills were very limited. And within a year, he became an assistant coach and he spoke at our benefit dinner in front of 100 people, a 14-year-old. So, and we were part of that process. We put coaches in his, in his world, and supported him, encouraged him, believed in him. And now he plays soccer all the time. And yeah.
How many kids do you have in your program here? I'm
Uh,
actually in Texas right now, but I live near you.
yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah.
English relative.
Yeah. In DC, we have 100 kids in our
You're as
program.
in there.
Yeah. In DC, we have 100 kids in our program.
And how many coaches do you have? How many teams is that? Is it? Are you in a league? Have you formed a league? How does that work?
So we in Liberia, in Liberia and Sierra Leone, we have our own L.A.C.E.S league. Like we have, a lot of children in that. Because there's leagues in the area here that are already created, we put our kids in those leagues. We have about 2 teams every year, which is only about is 20 kids. So what we do is we work with the most recently resettled, which is why the child that I was explaining came to our program, was referred very early on. And so those individuals have a year-long cycle in our program where they are given like intensive investment. They play on teams of smaller, maybe 12 kids. They have coaches who are there with them week in, and then that same group then experiences our summer camps. And our summer camps are soccer camps, and we do an adventure camp, which honestly is my favorite. And we bring refugee youth and non-refugee youth together to do cross-cultural understanding. And we do an adventure camp because how many youth in general get to do rock climbing, get to do high ropes courses, do things that aren't available to everyone. And so it puts them on a level playing field, and these things make them work together more on one-on-one. And so, yeah, that's probably one of my favorite camps. And then this children, so it's a small number, but our camps is where we have a large number. So our camps bring in, maybe 60, 70 additional children every year for the summer.
Where are most of these kids from?
Well, our very first year, they were from 14 different countries that spoke 7 different languages. But most recently, a lot of our children are from Afghanistan and then the Congo in Africa. So, yeah.
And I saw somewhere where you were speaking, you talked about privilege, the privilege that you've had to see kids' lives changed. I thought that was incredible, talking about that privilege. What does that privilege mean to you?
I think it it makes me it means to me that I know that what I sought out to do 14 years, 15 years ago is making a difference for generations. And I get to see that. Some people never get to see the impact they make in this world. People make a huge impact, but they never get to see it time and time and time again. And I get to. I mean, I saw this child transform over a period of a year, and I wasn't with him day in and day out, but I know times where I'm like, wow, his English language skills are really improving, or hey, I think he would actually be a good assistant coach. Let's help him do that. And so that privilege, I mean, you just, how often do you really get that? You just don't see it on such a scale that I get to see it, not every day, but more often than most people do, and know that you have a small part in that. Yeah.
Liberia now, 2017, George Weah, I guess I'm saying his name right, one of the greatest African soccer players of all time, played in the Premier League and the Super League in France. Ballon d'Or winner, FIFA Player of the Year, got elected president after running several times against Miss Sirleaf. How's he doing, and how is Liberia doing?
Depends on who you ask, I would say.
I'm asking.
My opinion, from my perspective, is that he's not serving the people in the way that he said he was going to. that he set out to do in the way that people believed he would, the way that he would continue to make an impact. I mean, President Sirleaf, made massive changes, and I'm sure she had her flaws along the way, but the changes she made in such a short period of time. And during his campaign, he communicated that that's what he was going to do, that not what she did, but make progress, and people's lives were going to be changed. And, people were inspired by that and wanted that to be possible. And he hasn't lived up to it. And he hasn't lived up to it in huge ways that are causing increased poverty. Currency right now, it's hard to get cash in Liberia. It's actually hard to, when we wire money to our bank in Liberia for the program, for our staff to pull money out, small amounts, they have to go several times because US dollar is the main currency there. And they can't access it. And so, and that hasn't been like that wasn't during the presidency of Sirleaf. So my opinion, no, he hasn't lived up to it, and he's not serving them in the way that they deserve to be.
Is the corruption still as bad as it has been in
Yes.
Liberia? That's
Yes.
one of the big issues, right? Like it is in a lot of
Yes.
several countries.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
We both live in DC, so
Right.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We're able to spot it. Let's just say that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure it is. For sure it lives deep into society, government, everyday living, stuff like that. And you run into it. We actually have a program that is an anti-corruption program. We have a curriculum that's woven in for anti-corruption, where we do exercises that's not sports-based, where we teach kids like what corruption looks like and how you can make a different decision to not do it. Because when it's baked into your society so much, sometimes you don't even know that it's there. It just seems like that's the way things are. And so to actually, everybody's, yeah, I grew up, this is what happens, this is how things are done. And, so when I engage in this is how I get things done. So we use it as a way to actually identify it and say, this is what corruption looks like. And what do you think about doing it this way? This is what you can achieve.
Tell me about your expansion plans. They're very ambitious.
They are ambitious.
What you've done proves that you're going to do this as well. What are your expansion plans for the next 10 years? I know you have a 10-year plan.
Yeah, I am super excited about this. I mean, so we've spent many years fine-tuning our curriculum. We partnered with the universities to do that research. And one of the reasons was we wanted to see the impact of our curriculum, of our framework of working with locals. Could this be replicated? Like, and that's why we also, it's like, here's your curriculum. This is what you do on Tuesday. This is what you do on Thursday, October 6th, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's very specific. And we wanted to know, can we expand this? Can we give it to others so more kids are experiencing L.A.C.E.S? Well, the research showed that we could and that we should. And so that's what we're doing. Now, our goal now is to partner with organizations that don't have sports organizations. So right now, like if you're in Liberia, you have L.A.C.E.S Liberia Leagues, and we run everything with it. Now we expanded into Sierra Leone. We did a partnership with an interim care center for street children in Sierra Leone, and we train them on our sports mentoring program. They've been doing it for a year now. And that's our goal. We just want to find more partners that are interested in providing, some psychosocial support for these youth, and that they're not already providing intentionally. Like this interim care center is providing food and education and helping kids with clothes, but they didn't have the capacity, the knowledge, and the know-how on how to do it intentionally. And that's the difference. I can throw a soccer ball on a field and you will get kids out there to play. That is fun. That is physical activity. But that is not teaching them life skills. That's not teaching them their social skills that they need to be successful in life. And so a lot of organizations don't have that kind of program. So we want to provide it. So that's our goal. And it's, we have this map of the globe that we look at and we say, this is what we want our organization to look like. throughout Africa, throughout South America, throughout the world. And this is like our North Star. We see this globe and we see all of these laces, like almost like Google pins that we put on it. And we're like, that's us. That's us in 10 years.
One of the hardest things for charities is to measure success. You ask the person, how do you measure your success? What does success look like? And they'll tell you anecdotal stories, which are terrific stories. It's just hard to find a metric for, numbers guys who go, okay, I
Yeah.
want to give you this dollar. What does this dollar do? You actually have that now because of this university studies that was done on you, which most charities don't. It's an amazing thing. Where does most of your funding come from? Does it come from religious organizations? Does it come from secular organizations? Where does your average funding come from?
Comes from individuals. So individual supporters who see our mission, hear about it, believe in it, and feel like that's where they want to invest their resources, the children that we serve. So individuals, we do have some grants, and we do have some churches that support us, but I'd say 90% is individuals.
And how can people that are listening to this or that hear this support you? How can they do that? How can they volunteer, say maybe in DC? How can they support you through money or in-kind donations?
Yeah, so go to laces.org, so LACES.org, and there's a button that says get involved. And there you'll see all the opportunities you can give one time, you can give monthly, you can volunteer at our refugee program, you can, introduce us to your church or introduce us to, other people in your community. Donate equipment. All of the equipment we use, like kids get, shoes, shin guards, socks, uniforms, like we need equipment. And so there's a donate equipment. So, and you can always email me. I'm just going to give it to you really quick, but it's S Fryatt, and then at laces.org, and the Fryatt is Fryatt. So feel free to find me.
And what is the giving through retail buying that you have on your Twitter? I was just looking at that last night. I hadn't noticed that before, which is to my discredit. But what is that? You can shop through certain vendors.
Oh, through Amazon.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is a great thing that Amazon has. It's called Amazon Smile, and they do it for charities across, the U.S. And you need an organization's information, and so Amazon donates a certain percentage based on like how much you spend, which has been great during the pandemic. So more people who sign up for Amazon, because my 4-year-old daughter is now like, hey, we can get that on Amazon, right? And I'm like, how do you know Amazon? And how do you know that we buy everything there? So every time somebody, buys their groceries through Amazon, buys their clothes or whatever it is that they're looking for, then a percentage of that goes to us. And all you have to do is make us your charity of choice. And you can do that right on your Amazon app. So,
And it doesn't cost anything extra to buy. Just a
nope.
portion of it will go to your charity, and that's all on your website and on your Twitter page, right?
Yep, it's all there. Yep. So it's just an easy, add us as your Amazon Smile and find us. But yeah, it's all there.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, we've been friends a long time, and
Yes.
when I first started looking at all the interviews last night, I thought, I don't know if I'm worthy to do this interview.
You're amazing. I loved this. This was a lot of fun.
Unbelievable, your story. I'm just blown away by it. I think it's just awesome. So thank you very much. The show's about people changing the world, and this show's certainly about you. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.